Gino Buccola here with the Daily Racing Form. The Saturday DRF race of the day is out at Santa Anita. It's the Grade 3 Royal Heroine. We'll take a look at the slate here, Gino. It's a pretty good field top to bottom. 9 here squaring off at the mile distance on the turf. And some big names in here, but also some horses maybe on the up and up.
Yeah, you have some newcomers who are kind of stretching out and trying to prove themselves going a little bit longer. Horses who we know have some early speed, but we have to see if they can really get the distance. I think the most accomplished horse in here on paper, as far as resume, is Bella Bell, who's really faced some tough runners throughout her career. And I'm excited for this one, Ashley. This is our maiden voyage together, so we better do a great job and get some winners for the folks out there.
Yeah, the pressure is on. You talked about the pace in this race, Gina, so we'll take a look at the time form pace projections here. And to me, this isn't really shocking. Obviously, the 6 Irresistible Force has been forward throughout her career, pretty much since transferring to the turf. And the other big name in here, in my opinion, the 8 Stay and Scam, who is interesting. Tried the mile for the first time last time out and fared pretty well against a very good field.
Yeah, and both of them are really quick. Those are horses who have actually been able to show speed sprinting. So they were able to actually stretch it all the way out when they went a little bit longer. So couple really quick horses. And on paper, it does look like that's the trip that Bella Bell probably wants, right? Sitting 3rd or 4th in the next tier, right behind those top 2 who are a little bit quicker naturally than Bella Bell. So I'm thinking that's probably the trip that Bella Bell wants right there. It feels to me like this is where you want to be, unless one of those horses can get a little separation. But on paper, I do think they're probably going to be keeping each other company up front, just like Time 4 US thinks.
And we can see the LP flag attached to the number 9 and here the outside runner in the field. So this is the race of the day. Don't forget free DRF PPs on the website for each of our races of the day. But let's kick it off here with the number 1, Miss Lizzy, who we're going to take a look at her most recent performance. And we look at this replay, Gino, she's stepping up in class. She finally gets in graded stakes competition here. She has a ton of work to do, but she's really going to move forward to finish 2nd in the Monrovia.
Yeah, this is a good effort too. She was behind a horse named AG Bullet. AG Bullet is 4 for 4 on the turf. And Miss Lizzy now, after 4 straight sprints, will stretch back out to a mile. And if you notice the pattern, she's won before under similar circumstances when she went sprint, and then back to a route. The reason why I think that's a little bit important is because of her running style, Ashley. She does get a little bit lazy early and she drops way out of it. I think once she comes out of a few sprints in a row, it just has some of her speed sharpened up a little bit. Notice the last time she went a mile, she just didn't have to come from dead last. She was able to sit more mid-pack. She was only 3 to 4 lengths off of it. That's the type of trip I think she wants in here. And initially when I handicapped this race, I thought that maybe she wasn't quite classy enough to look at to deal with this group. You start diving into this filly, she is really, really sharp. I mean, she is a horse who's done so little wrong in her career. She has 13 starts on the turf. She has 10 of them in the money, and the 3 that she doesn't have where she hit the board, she has legitimate excuses for poor performances that day where she had trouble. So she shows up and runs her best each and every time. She's super onyx, and she's definitely going to be in the mix for me.
Yeah, I think you bring up a great point of the fact that she's coming out of sprint races. Naturally, she should be a little bit closer early on at the mile distance. So next up in the field's the 2 Lakota Spirit. This one trained by Phil D'Amato. She kind of disappointed last time out, I would say, in the Buena Vista, but at the same time, she was 50 to 1 in that spot. She was taking a huge step up in class. But I think the question with her is the mile distance. Lately, with the exception of her last out, she has gone longer.
Yeah, she chased a lone speed winner a couple starts back in Linda's Gift. She was behind Ruby Nell last time out. So some nice horses that she's been facing in her last few and that are just much quicker than her early on. I wanted to like her more. Like I kept coming back to her, trying to build cases for her, but I really couldn't find as many legitimate excuses. And then you just sort of look at a horse like Angel Nadeshiko, who some of the others in here who have handled and she was defeated by. I just think I like others in here a little bit more than her. And I just couldn't find a reason why I was going to upgrade her over some others in here recently. Great connections. She wouldn't really shock, but at the price I think she'll be, I'm just going to be probably looking in a different direction.
When you talked about her connections, they also sent out the 3 Bella Bell, also trained by Phil D'Amato. We're not going to take a look at her most recent performance. We're going to take a look at the replay from her race 2 back, which was off an extended layoff, to say the least. And she went to the front in here, Gino, and she just is much the best. Justique is going to move late to finish 3rd in here, but all eyes on Bella Bell here in the stretch.
This was extremely impressive. This was coming off of a 15-and-a-half-month layoff, and she just, they thought she was the best horse in the race, and that's what they did. They put her on the front end, and they tried to make her come and pass them, and nobody could. And then, as you pointed out, she disappointed a little bit in her most recent start. That was probably her most lackluster effort since coming to the US. I mean, you start diving through her form. She faced horses like Ruby Nell, Gino Romantica, and Spenderella. Those are her 3 losses in the US, just quality horses. So to me, the trip is really the key in here. Did she come off the bench firing? Maybe she regressed a little bit in her second start. She should be absolutely ready for her best effort here. 3rd start of the form cycle, 3rd start back off the long layoff, and the trip that we projected, looking at the Timeform US pace projector. She really does seem like she'll stock in right behind the top 2, maybe sitting 3rd or 4th. So I'm not going to necessarily put her in on the top because I think she'll be a little bit overbet in here. But if you're playing any type of exotics, I'd have a really hard time throwing her out.
Curious to get your thoughts on the number 4, Glenall here, who's an interesting mare. She's a 3-time winner in her career. The concerns I personally have with her is the trip. They've tried different things with her where she has been more forward in 1 mile events. Last time out, she's towards the back of the pack there in the Great Theory Wilshire, and I just don't know what I expect for her. At least you would hope that she would improve second time off the layoff.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Second start back off the 7-month break. So she should take a nice step forward in here. The question is it going to be enough to be competitive with a group like this? She was a stakes winner at Lone Star, but she just couldn't build the momentum off of that. When she stepped up and faced tougher in her last few, she seemed a little bit overmatched. So again, this is one that I need to see a little bit more from, but I do expect that improvement like you. So if you're one that is expecting a better effort from her, she'll be fitter and she'll have an opportunity to give you that effort right here.
The 5, Justique up next. Her 2 wins, they're both on dirt. Now, she has been close in some of her turf races. Her most recent was by far her worst. In terms of figures, it was her second worst, but she really only beat one other runner. But I think the races that are sneaky are the races maybe 2 back and even 4 back, where 4 back, Ruby Nell, we know, likes to open up a big lead when she can. She was still kind of close to it compared to everyone else in the field. And I wonder from a trip setup, could she at least get a share in here?
Yeah, the key with her, it's never been talent. It's always been running style. I mean, from very on, she won her career debut and the buzz was out. She was supposed to be the next big thing. But the problem is she just leaves herself with so much to do in so many races because she doesn't have any early speed at all. She's never won on the grass. She's actually faster by Bayer speed figures on the grass than she's been on the dirt. But the problem that I have with her is just the way that we're looking at this race. Could be quick, but I still think she's going to have to go by so many other horses in here to me until I can see her start to show more tactical speed. Sometimes that happens as horses mature and grow up. I'm always going to be using her as more of an underneath type at most until I can really see her start to kind of make her own race a little bit more. Too often, Ashley, I think she's just kind of at the mercy of racing luck.
I agree with you. The 6, Irresistible Force up next. This one's interesting for a couple of reasons. Certainly from a pace perspective, should be forward. We saw that in the Timeform US pace projections. The other thing with this one, I guess maybe interesting or concerning with me would be the mile distance. 2 tries in it back to back now, and is just getting caught late in those races by other horses. Combining that with the fact that she's jumping up in class, do you have concerns about her kind of holding her own late?
I try to call myself an irresistible force, so I thought you were talking to me for a second, but we are talking about the 6 here, who has to be the key to the race as far as how it shapes up, right? Because if a horse like this doesn't go, then to the outside, we can have a horse like Stay and Scam possibly get loose. So that's what makes a race like this very difficult when on paper, it looks like there are 2 major speeds, right? When there are 3 or 4, you can feel a lot more confident that there will surely be an honest pace. But if one of these 2 horses are looking at the race just like we are, they have the past performances. A lot of them have the Timeform US pace projector. They know if one of them say, hey, let's sit a little bit off, you could see a horse like Irresistible Force get brave. Now, she has not proven herself at this level, but Ashley, the speed figures she's running, they're not that far off from competing with this group. So if a horse like that gets a pace advantage, that's how long shots win races. And that's where you get prices happening. So the real key is what kind of trip. I don't think they want to go head up with Stay and Scam. And they were fine sitting back just a little bit. So probably this really close, putting pressure on Stay and Scam. I have a hard time just expecting the trip that this horse will need in order to win. So more of an underneath type for me, super honest, but I just think the pace shape doesn't really set up all that well for Irresistible Force in this one.
The 7, Uncorked up next. Another one trained by Phil D'Amato. He's got a bunch in here, and we'll take a look at her most recent performance. Now, when you're looking at this, going to Aqueduct on the turf in the Forever Together, and this is a mare that had a lot of work to do, especially compared to her other prior efforts in the fall of 2023. And I think she makes up good ground here. She's only going to miss by a length. I think the big thing is she's facing horses such as Chili Flag. I mean, I think this makes her at least respectable in a race like this.
Absolutely. From a class standpoint, I think she really does fit here. And even just plainly looking at buyer speed figures, she fits with a lot of the horses in this race. My concerns with her are more of the layoff. We haven't seen her for 5 months. First time D'Amato, which is not a negative. D'Amato is very, very good with first time acquisitions, and he can get horses ready to fire off the bench. But now you're kind of stacking things against her, right? First time now as an older, certainly capable off long layoffs, but we just have to see where she stacks up over here. Probably a little bit better going a little longer than a mile, more like a mile and a 16th to a mile and an eighth. But when you have Dettori and D'Amato, from a connection standpoint alone, she certainly would be a hard horse to completely dismiss. I just like others a little bit better in here, ones that have a little more recent form.
We'll take a look at the 8 Stay in Scam's most recent performance. This was her first time stretching out. She had several 6.5 furlong races on the downhill. She steps up here, not only graded stakes competition, but to the mile distance. And I think she did everything right. I think she sort of, I know she went off favored, but I think there were a lot of doubters on her in terms of the distance. And yes, she gets caught by Nadette in the end, but Nadette is a closer who's pretty hard to, kind of compete with in those final stages. And Nadette kind of needed to find the winner's circle. It had been a little bit. So I think all in all, Stay in Scam should only take a step forward here, a second time out at the distance.
Yeah, I don't really have many knocks on her. She cleared early, then she got challenged, and she had to work probably a little bit harder than she would have liked in that race. And then if you watch the finish there, she's well clear of the rest of the field. That was a winning type effort that day. That was her first start going long, so she has the right to take a nice step forward and just be fitter with that race under her. Yeah, she's a major pace factor. She's a Calbred Stakes winner. She's grade 3 placed. I think she fits really well. She's been no worse than third in any of her 8 starts on the grass, and 7 of them she's been in the top 2. So she just shows up and gives you the best that she has each and every day. Super honest. She's in the mix.
And we'll round out the field here with the 9. This one, Umberto Rispoli aboard for Brendan Walsh. Now, this one's had 2 starts since a little bit of a freshening, both down at Gulfstream Park on their turf course. Was able to get into the money last time out at the mile on a 16th distance. She's going to cut back. We haven't seen her at the mile in quite some time. You'd have to think third start in the form cycle should help her chances. I guess my concern is I feel like when I look at her, she's maybe a little pace dependent.
Yeah, that is the key with her, right? She's not a deep closer, but she does seem like she sort of needs like a perfectly timed ride to kind of put like vault her into the right spot. I don't know about you, Ashley, but for me, what's so funny about horse racing is every time you open up a race, you never know the names of the horses that you're going to see. And then I go down these rabbit holes a lot of times with horses' names. This one's a fascinating horse named Fuente Ovejuna, which is a play written by the Spanish playwright Lope de Vega, which is the sire of this. And now I'm reading about the play, which is like this it's in the 1400s, and this village has this awful ruler, and then they uprise over the ruler. And what I thought was funny is what the villagers would say when they were questioned about the incident was, Fuente Ovejuna did it. And it just kept making me think like maybe after this race, we're going to be thinking Fuente Ovejuna did it. Because I actually think this horse does fit well class-wise. 11 races since coming into the Walsh barn. 7 have been in the money finishes. And you start diving through race by race. And a lot of the stuff makes sense to me. I mean, look at her last 5 races, for example, going back to last year, June of 2023. She's third in a stakes race at Parks. Then she steps up at Indy. We're in July the 8th. I mean, you can make legit excuses. It's a turf course that's good that day. She comes back in August. She has a bad start. Then she's off for 6 months. Shows back up in February on the 24th. She has a fine start. She's a little tight down on the inside. She's traveling well at the top of the lane. Nowhere to go that day. She's kind of looking around for room. She's only beaten a length and 3/4 that day. Sweet Danny Girl is multiple graded stakes placed. Papilio is a grade 2 winner. 4th place finisher that day came back to win next time out, named Ocean Club. And then the last time out, she wanted to be a little bit closer. She had some traffic early on. She waited. She kind of got pushed all the way back to 8th. She was down on the inside. The winner that day, Cairo Consort, was a grade 3 winner who's multiple grade 1 placed. 4th that day was Angel Nadashiko, who we actually talked about in the running lines with Lakota Spirit. So I have her as one of my top in here. I think she actually has a really nice class fit with this group. But you are right. With the trip that she may get from the outside, things are going to need to fall perfectly for her. I just hope that Rispoli is able to push the button. And I'm going to be reading a little bit more later on about 1490s plays, Ashley.
Well, hopefully, Frank Miramati did his research in case she does win. We'll have a nice line there in the stretch run if she finds the winner's circle. But that's the field of 9 for the Grade 3 Royal Heroine. Don't forget, this is the Saturday race of the day for the daily racing form, free PPs, and also to click and subscribe. But curious, it seems like you like a couple of horses in here. I thought it was a wide open event. So
It is.
ultimately, you went with a horse that might offer some value on the inside, the number 1, Miss Lizzy.
Yeah, I think Miss Lizzy is just honest, is in really nice form right now. So I'm going to go Miss Lizzy on top. I think the horse to beat is Bella Bell. It looks like we're both putting like the horse to beat in that second spot. I went Stay and Scam as a horse underneath, who I think will definitely be in the mix. And then we just talked about Fuente Ovejuna. So a lot of similarities for us, just kind of slightly different order of how we put them. But the race will really go through the 8, Stay and Scam, and the 6. What happens with Irresistible Force and Stay and Scam early. And if one of those two can separate, you might be the one with the winner.
We'll find out. I've been a huge fan of her actually since I spoke to Doug O'Neill on Breeders' Cup weekend about her, and I'd like to see her progression. I think Stay and Scam is going to take a step forward, hopefully second time at the mile distance, which I thought maybe was going to be tricky for her, but honestly, she ran very well in that first outing in her most recent start. So 8-3-7-9 for me, 1-3-9-8 for Gino. It's the Grade 3 Royal Heroine DRF's race of the day this Saturday. Good luck.